Deep in the wilderness of Nova Scotia, hidden among overgrown logging roads and forgotten clearings, lie the ruins of a place once called Electric City. In the late 1890s, this place started as a remote lumber camp, but quickly became a self-sufficient utopia that was one of the very first spots in the Maritimes to have electricity and running water, decades before anywhere else in the region. But like many bold dreams in the wilderness, Electric City rose fast and fell just as dramatically. Today I'm heading in to spend an overnighter at the site to explore what remains and learn how this remote community was living decades ahead of its time. Stick with us, this is going to be a good one. It is mid-April here in Nova Scotia, and we've been getting lots of rain. Talking to locals, there is a road to access Electric City, but it's rough on a good day. So I thought it'd be easier to access through a string of lakes. It's about an hour and a half paddle. I'm starting on Long Tusket Lake to Little Tusket Lake and finishing on Langford Lake, the final destination of Electric City. So that would have been the sluice of the mill, and around this corner should be the spot. I think this is the mill right here. It just looks like a rocky island. Yeah, the road's just over there, so I'm gonna land here. Okay, we've arrived. Just looks like an overgrown forest right now. I know there's a road, and I'm a little north because I'm just beyond the what I think is the mill. So let's go explore. Hopefully there's something to see. This looks kind of open. Aha! Oh. I'm gonna go bring the rest of my stuff up here, but we made it to Electric City. All right, we made it. Electric City. At the time, Electric City was known as New France, but it's interesting that the only place with running water and electricity was about 20 kilometers from the coast in the middle of the wilderness. Well, to understand Electric City, we need to go back to Normandy, France in the late 1800s. Emile Stehelin was a businessman who owned a felt company, and he had a large family of 14 kids and his wife Marie. The family had a lot of money and they liked to live luxurious. But in 1892, one of his sons, Jean-Jacques, was a bit of a rascal. He was getting into trouble, smoking cigarettes, and Emile wanted to send him somewhere that he could go find himself. New opportunities, he thought, would be happening in Nova Scotia, Canada. So he shipped him out here to study and find his way. What he found was a love for the Canadian wilderness. And not just the wilderness, but the lumber industry. So with his dad's money, he bought 500 acres of woodlot and started a lumber business. Emile was super proud of him, but he thought he was going to screw it up. So he sent his oldest son, Emile Jr., and two other brothers to look after Jean-Jacques in Nova Scotia. Well, the boys got out here, and they also fell in love with the wilderness here, and started working with Jean on the lumber mill. Word got back to Emile in France that things were going well here, and Emile, being the family man that he is, he had family in France, he had some of his sons in Nova Scotia, so he was feeling a little split. But around the same time, war was happening in Europe. So Emile decided to move his entire family to Nova Scotia to find peace, as well as have all the family together. Well, his wife Marie thought this was sort of sus. She likes France, she likes the money, and she likes living luxurious. She didn't want to come to a logging camp in the middle of nowhere, Nova Scotia. But Emile had a plan. He wanted to bring the luxuries of France and the way of life to this logging camp. So right away, he started working on building this into a small community. Emile loved his family, but he extended that generosity to his workers. Didn't matter what race, what gender, or what financial status they had, he treated everybody equal. And at the time, that was unheard of. But that also brought Acadians, French settlers, blacks, and Mi'kmaq all here to work. He also paid his workers a higher wage than anywhere else in the area. As part of the building plan, Emile wanted to bring some luxury to the spot. One of the luxuries at the time was electricity, and most of the Maritimes did not have it. It was expensive, it was technical, and at the time it was thought of not a necessity. But Emile wanted those creature comforts. So they invested in a dynamo that they installed in the lumber mill that then brought electricity to some of the buildings. He was also able to rig up running water. And to put this into perspective, the rest of the Maritimes didn't get electricity for decades after. And some places didn't get running water until after World War II, which is about 75 years later. Around the Maritimes, this small community, known as New France, started getting the reputation as Electric City. And the legend was born. And a lot of workers wanted to work here under Emile. Everyone had equal opportunity. He also trusted their opinion. At the time, a lot of Canadians couldn't read or write, but they were smart. And they pitched an idea to build a railway from New France to Weymouth on the coast. This was a bottleneck. They were using oxen, and it was the slowest part of the operation. So with the help of all the workers and the family, they built a railway that was 27 kilometers, or 17 miles, out of wood, all the way from New France to Weymouth. They used a simple steam engine that they called the Firefly, and it increased business, and it made New France way more accessible for people. Business was growing, and New France lived in self-reliance and prospered for about 25 years. But nothing ever lasts. Emile's wife Marie got sick, and at 61 she died. This left a hole in New France and in Emile's heart. And the big house that they lived in fell empty. He couldn't stand being here any longer, so he packed up his bags and left New France for Weymouth on the coast. Around the same time, World War I was breaking out, and France was calling on all French citizens to fight for their country. And all the sons and French settlers that lived in New France had to pack their bags and head back to France to fight in the war. As this was all happening, the demand for lumber was decreasing with the increased demand of iron. So New France was no longer as profitable. They lost their matriarch in Marie, and Emile didn't even live there anymore. So as quickly as New France was built, it was abandoned. And to this day, the only thing that remains are the old dwellings. So pretty interesting story about how... So there's a lot of information online, as well as a book that I have, which we'll talk about later. And I was able to draw a map of what New France looked like, where all the buildings were. So what I'm gonna go do is explore the site and see what we can find. The first thing I noticed is the road's not in too bad shape, and I probably could have drove here. And there's also these cooking spots for people to camp and hang out, so obviously it's a bit of a tourist destination. This is the big house. This is where the Stehelin family lived. This fit 11 people. Emile and his wife Marie would have parties here. So there'd be French cuisine, there'd be French music, French wine. This is where all the parties and the community came together. The original foundation is here, and maybe some original glass too. It's hard to tell. People have been coming to visit this spot for 100 years, so it's hard to know what was original and what's come from after. Other than the big house, this is by far the most significant foundation. My note says this is the forge. There's underground pipes leading to this. What do you guys think? Let me know. There's a fire ring here, so this is probably where I'm going to camp tonight. It's nice and sheltered. But I do suppose that a forge would be really important out here when you're self-sufficient and building everything by yourself. You would need a spot to build. But this big? Between the chapel and the office, there's this pit. It's lined in rocks. It reminds me a bit of a dug well. This is a pretty big foundation here. A lot of rocks everywhere. And this must be the barn. The lumber would be laid on top, and it would create a flooring for the animals. And New France had everything from oxen, horses, and cows. So you need a lot of space, and that makes sense because there's a lot of stuff going on here. This is definitely the wine cellar. The Stehelins love their wine, specifically French wine. So it makes sense that they had a proper cellar for it. Imagine there's one bottle left. Okay, we found most of the spots. On this side of the river, we found everything other than the tea house, the chicken coop, of course, lumber stash zones, and the railway. All that would have been wood, I'm assuming, so over the last 100 years it would have rotted away. Tomorrow morning I'm going to check out the other side of the river that has the Well of Temptation, casino, and Emile Jr.'s house. But for the rest of today, I'm going to set up camp and then do a few things that they would have been doing back in the New France days. I'm going to be eating something pretty traditional tonight for dinner, and I think I saw a fish rise back there. So, as the Stehelins would have been doing, I gotta give fishing a try. Wild game was a big part of their diet back in the day. Lots of moose, lots of deer, lots of brook trout, eel as well. So, let's see if we can catch a trout. This spot used to be plentiful with brook trout and eel back in the New France days. Marie really didn't like the eel. She said it was bland, but that was a big part of their diet. They'd catch them right here and chunk them up into 3-inch chunks, fry them up, maybe a little salt and pepper. That's it. I think it's time to live like a Stehelin. We got some French wine for dinner. Le Fat Bastard. Cabernet Sauvignon. I did not get this from the wine cellar, unfortunately. Gotta give some to Marie. Cheers to you guys. Cheers to Electric City. For dinner tonight, we're doing a moose stew. Moose would have been a protein that would have been around and available for them to eat, and a stew is classic 1800s Nova Scotia Maritimes. We got garlic, onions, celery, carrots, and turnip. Add the moose, and then I'm going to deglaze it with a little red wine. Add the bouillon cubes, root vegetables, and to keep it French, we're going to be adding herbes de Provence. Back in the day in New France, they had a lot of trouble sourcing French spices. Marie would send the boys into town to try to find spices, and they'd spend the entire day tracking stuff down. As the stew is cooking, I'm going to start working on dessert. A traditional dessert back in the 1800s would have been bread pudding. It's really simple. You got eggs, you got milk, sugar, vanilla extract, cinnamon. This would have been a typical dessert that they might have eaten out here with old stale bread. I'm going to be using baguettes and some dried fruit and nuts to finish it off. Some butter. Before coming out here, I picked up Electric City, the book, the Stehelins of New France. It was written by the grandchild of Emile, the fabulous true story of a legendary family who carved out of the forest wilderness a beautiful life and a prosperous business. There's also some pretty cool photos in here of the family members as well as New France. How's the moose looking? Oh yeah. Oh buddy. Oh, this is what they're eating out here? I would definitely come by. Oh yeah, that's ready. That's ready. All right, just in the nick of time. She is raining. But I'll tell you, that looks good. Oh man. Tastes like a French toast. Tastes like a really sugary, moist French toast. Alright, I'm gonna try to finish this, and then I'm off to bed. Tomorrow we're gonna go explore the other side of the river. Till then. Good morning, friends. My breakfast today is going to be moose stew. Moose stew and coffee. This morning we're going to go check out the other side of the river. 3 main spots: Emile Jr.'s house, Well of Temptation, and the casino. This is Emile Jr.'s house. He was the eldest son of Emile, and he lived here with his wife. So this morning we found Emile Jr.'s house and the casino right on the beach. Could not find the Well of Temptation, looked far and wide for it. I'm not even too sure if it is an actual well. I couldn't find any information online. The hole we saw yesterday, probably the dug well, but if you guys know anything more about this, let me know in the comments below. And that just about wraps us up. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Electric City is a piece of Canadian history, and it's really easy to see why the Stehelin family fell in love with the Canadian wilderness. If you guys enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing. We do lots of Canadian backcountry and coastal adventures and try to include some educational aspects to it, whether it's history or science. So on that note, we'll see you guys next time.